right now I'm a student at the University of Michigan, so a lot of my community organizing and justice work has been oriented around campus-related things or organizations affecting change in society. Some of them include being black at the University of Michigan is something that's recent going on. Also, students organizing against prisons is another project that I've worked on. Right now, I'm working with the YEA program, Young Educators Alliance, which is a program out of EMEAC. And so it's a youth-based program that is focused on scaling up youth leadership and really getting youth active and involved in social justice movements and developing their skills and really helping them engage with their environment and how they can affect change and where they see themselves fitting into the movement, and really trying to work on that intergenerational piece so that we can have succession and that dialogue between different generations so we can learn from each other. But I'm also a women's studies major, and so I really do identify with the ideology of EMEAC being an eco-feminist organization in the sense of being humanist, being for all human rights and really reducing marginalization. So one of the things right now that we're working on with YEA is engaging with women's issues and gender issues and things like that. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Emem Okon, who is also very active in the women's rights.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that all of you found the time to come out here and welcome us and also to listen to what we have to say. I work with a women's rights organization in the Niger Delta region, and from the film you can see what has been going on in the Niger Delta region for the past 50 years. Gas flaring is still going on. You saw the elderly man that said from 2004 they shifted to 2006 to 2008, and this is 2014, and gas is still being flared in the Niger Delta region. The companies always have one excuse or the other why they cannot stop gas flaring, and the Nigerian government also have felt in her responsibility to hold them accountable. There is no legislation to get them to stop gas flaring. So people in the Niger Delta region are still inhaling the poisonous gas that has been flared in the Delta since oil was discovered in 1956. We have also seen in the film oil spillage into water bodies and into farmlands. That also is still going on. Oil is still being spilled into the Niger Delta environment, and people, especially people in riverine communities, are still drinking the polluted waters because there is no other source of water for them to drink and to use for other domestic purposes. And my group has been mobilizing women to also speak up about the effects of these activities in their lives. You saw the woman who said she miscarried because of oil spillage in her community. That is just one example. Several other women in the Niger Delta region have experienced miscarriages. Some cannot even have babies. Some are experiencing early menopause. There is also a high incidence of cancer. When Will was singing and he was talking about respiration and cancer, I felt he was talking about the Niger Delta region, because that is what we are experiencing as a result of gas flaring. It is also indicated in the video that some of these flares are very close to houses, to where people live. Most of those flares are located right in the midst of community where people live, where people have markets, where people go to farms. So the impact is so direct. there is a community in Rivers State, Akalolu community, where the people say they don't know the difference between day and night, because at night they have this huge flame of fire that keeps everywhere as if there is no darkness, and that has been going on for many years, and nobody is taking any action to address that anomaly. And children have also suffered defects in the Niger Delta, so everybody is impacted. It is recorded in To Cook a Continent, a book written by one of the foremost environmentalists in the Niger Delta, architect Emem Okon, that over 400 million tons of this poisonous gas is being released from the Niger Delta into the global atmosphere on a yearly basis. So it is not only affecting us back there in the Niger Delta, it's affecting every other person in Africa, even in the United States. When oil is spilled, it goes into the water and the water flows. So it is not only in the Niger Delta, it affects other people in other parts of Nigeria, other people in other parts of Africa, and also the entire global community. 2 years ago, a report was released by the United Nations Environmental Program, and part of the findings was that both surface water and underground water in the Niger Delta has high concentration of hydrocarbon. And that report also said that it will take over 30 years to clean up the Niger Delta environment. There were recommendations on what government should do and what Shell should do to begin the cleanup process in the Niger Delta. 2 years after that report was released, nothing has been done. People continue to suffer. We have mobilized women, especially those in communities that are directly impacted, to stand up and confront some of these practices. The reason why we are focusing on women is that women are doubly oppressed. They are oppressed by what is going on in the Niger Delta. They are also being oppressed by tradition and culture that does not really promote women leadership. So we have to empower women and encourage them to go beyond the limitations of tradition, to begin to engage with the community governance system, with the state government, the local government, and the federal government, and also the oil companies, to ensure that they also have their own voices to the agitations and the resistance that is going on in the Niger Delta. We have conducted trainings. We have been able to get these women on radio. We have also mobilized these women to participate in international activities such as the World Social Forum in Dakar. The booklet or the publication that is given to some of you is a report of that mobilization initiative at the World Social Forum in Dakar, where we provided that platform for women from Ogoni and from Uborodo to speak up against the activities of oil companies and other extractive companies against them and the impact that it is having on women. I will share one great effort by the women to engage with the companies. In 2002, there were 3 different groups of women that rose up and actually occupied some of these oil facilities. The first group is the Uborodo women. Uborodo community is host to the biggest Chevron facility in the Niger Delta, the Chevron oil tank farm. And women do not work in that facility. It is only men. The community women in Uborodo mobilized and took over the staff exchange boats, as these boats were going to pick up the staff to the platform. The women took over the boats. So instead of the boats taking the staff to the platform, it was the women that went to the platform and took over the security posts, the airstrip, and even the offices. and they succeeded in stopping work for 11 days. The demand was that Chevron management should come from Lagos to discuss with the women, because until then, women were not part of the negotiation and discussions between the company and the community. At the end of 11 days, the Chevron General Manager for Public Affairs had to come from Lagos to discuss with the women. Of course, at that level, he did not discuss with the over 400 women that took that action. The state government sent representatives, the paramount chiefs had representatives, the youth leaders were there, and it was only about 2 women that were on that negotiation table. But however, the women will recognize Chevron increased the number of scholarship awards to students from that community. Chevron also established a microcredit scheme for the women. So that action created that recognition that the voices of women is very necessary in the negotiations, and the women were also able to talk about what has been going on in their communities. Ever since, before then there used to be actions by community women, but the media would not report it, and activists will discuss about the general impact on people in the Niger Delta, but then there is need to bring up the particular and specific implications on women, because women's voices were being suppressed, the specific impact of women talking about the fertility issues were also being suppressed. Besides, there have been a lot of violence as a result of the oil politics. The oil companies use one group against the other. They use divide and rule strategies. So you have the youths fighting the elders, you have one community fighting the other community, and you have different people fighting each other. In addition to the resistance movement between the people and the companies. So at a time, there was a lot of violent activities going on in the Niger Delta. And when it happens like that, it is the women that suffer the most impact, because their sons were dying, their husbands were also dying, and the environment was not also conducive for their own economic activities. Movements were being restricted. Even some women themselves were being killed, they were being sexually abused and all that. So on that issue, we also mobilized women to demonstrate against the violence that was going on. We organized Mothers for Peace rallies, and women had to call on their sons and their husbands and their brothers that they should drop the weapons of violence and engage in peaceful negotiation. Fortunately, in 2009, the federal government introduced the amnesty program that has reduced the rate of violence in the Niger Delta. But then, this amnesty program has not addressed the impact that women suffered as a result of the violence. It has not also addressed the environmental impact on women. The inequality still exists in the Niger Delta. The poverty situation is still there because oil and gas activities has disrupted the economic activities of the women. The traditional occupation of the people of the Niger Delta, particularly the women, is fishing and farming. So when crude oil is spilled into the water bodies, it disrupts their fishing business because they cannot get the fish as they used to get. And besides, they eat polluted fishes. The whole river bodies is polluted. They cannot farm anymore. So those sources of livelihood are being affected, and there is no other source of income. This has been the problem. There is a high rate of poverty, feminization of poverty, to be very specific, in the Niger Delta region. So this situation still exists. The amnesty program is focusing on the male combatant youths, is not addressing the impact that was experienced by the people in the Niger Delta. So people who have been involved in non-violent resistance movement, their issues are not being addressed. But then, the amnesty program has also created that enabling environment for the oil companies to continue their business. And they are more interested in making profit than addressing the impact of their business on the people. So the problem continues. The situation has remained the way it is, and government has also not been able to regulate these activities because the companies have become more powerful than the government. We had expected that if we have somebody from the Niger Delta in key decision-making positions in the country, that things will change. But now we have a president from the Niger Delta who is unable to address these issues because the forces have become more powerful than what he could handle. So the challenge is still there. And I'm happy that I am part of this talk to share the experience that the situations and the difficulties and challenges that we have experienced over the past 50 years is still very prevalent in the Niger Delta region. And that the two of the major companies operating in the Niger Delta, Chevron and ExxonMobil, are headquartered here in the US. So putting pressure on them right here in the United States could help to make them change their practices back home in the Niger Delta to respect the rights of the people and also to protect the health of the environment. Without a healthy environment, the people cannot be healthy. So, I'm here with my colleague, and I also thank you for his efforts and commitment since we started this talk. And I believe from what I have heard, all the people that have spoken before me, that we are in the right place and that we are talking to the right people. And that I know we have your support and your commitment. They keep telling the government that we cannot stop gas flaring until so and so year. And in 2011, when I had the opportunity in attending Chevron shareholders meeting, I asked the question, I asked the CEO when Chevron thinks they can stop gas flaring in Nigeria. And the response he gave was that Chevron is still experiencing challenges to end gas flaring, and that the activities of the youths in the Niger Delta is not helping them to end gas flaring. So they don't really have excuse. The only reason is that it is cheaper for them to waste the gas than to utilize it for other useful purposes. So they just waste the gas and release it into the atmosphere.